He's giving us this house for free.
It doesn't make any sense.
But this is what we've always wanted. We can be really happy here.
Jordana, it is great to get to meet you. Admittedly, been a fan since the faculty, so it's a big honor to get to chat with you as well. I love The Cellar Door. It is such a gripping psychological thriller, so many great layers to it. What about the project sparked your interest to want to be a part of it? Was it your character? Was it Sam and Laurie's script? What was it?
Well, I wanted to play a lead. I was like, yes, I'm number one. So that selfishly was one. Two, I really loved the fact that she's deeply, deeply flawed and deeply like hanging on to an idea of what she wants, because I can relate to that. And also the chaos that comes from that when you don't, I mean, we're all told like you have to just, go with the flow, and there's no such thing as control. I'm still trying to learn that. So I think she was a great way to work through that for me.
I love that. So in getting to the heart of her, then you obviously related to that element of her, but what else did you find was the big key for really figuring out who Sarah was and how to bring her to life on screen?
I think oftentimes, even it's this weird analogy, but like when I'm driving, like sometimes my shoulders will be up here and I'm gripping the wheel. And then I'm like, wait, why am I holding on so tight? Like I'm like taking my kids to school. Like, what is the big deal? But I feel like she's very much in that state and she doesn't know how to get out of it. And that's why it's like, you see Scott's characters, like trying to, look at things from all angles, and he's a little more flexible, and she's just like intractable. And again, that's a side of my personality that I drew from. I'm trying not to be that way as much because it's not very helpful. But it's something I really understood. And I think that's what enables her at the end to be like, no, everything's fine. It's good. As long as like the other shoe doesn't drop and she has her child, I think like that's all she wants. And I find that a human's ability to compartmentalize and shut down certain things is interesting.
It really is, and I love the way that plays into sort of how this story goes, especially as you mentioned the ending, which I don't want to get into spoilers, but it's a really interesting ending. I can't wait for people to start talking about it. So you mentioned Scott, and I'd love to hear, that's part of the you mentioned, flawed human beings in the story, and you are both such interesting characters. The relationship is so complex. What is it like finding that rhythm and that dynamic with Scott, both prior to and during filming?
Well, I think oftentimes you have actors that are like very precious and don't have a sense of humor about themselves. And then you have some that are willing to play, have a sense of humor, communicate, and are open. And that was Scott. Like we would mock each other about our quirks. And we also like would grab a scene and figure out, okay, what's working, what's not, what potentially needs to be changed. And so I think if you have a rapport that's easy offset, it then becomes really you then trust your scene partner and can just get into a match with them, which, and we also have young kids. Like Scott has now he has two, I have two kids. Like we get it. I think we could also, whereas in our 20s, we were playing like the love interest or like love is perfect. Love is like this ideal thing. But now it's a marriage and it's like, well, kind of going through a rough patch and they're kind of just overly familiar with each other. And what does that look like? And I think that's an interesting thing to portray because it's fun to be able to see yourself in a film instead of just an idealized version of like, oh, that's how people should be, which is BS, I think.
That is really what I love about this film is just how real everybody feels as far as the characters and the relationships go. And I love that you had that connection with Scott. I'm curious if there was any one scene, though, where you really felt that clicked for you both, that you were like, okay, we definitely have this dynamic down together.
Well, I kept teasing him because I've often been in movies where they're like, hey, can you take your shirt off? Or, hey, like, what's the nudity clause? And I loved that, like the scene in the bathroom where we're brushing our teeth and he's got his shirt off and he was like, why do I have to have my shirt off? And I was just kind of like, it's fun, isn't it? And like now with shows, I see so much penis, like not like, I'm just like, it's so refreshing to like the guys now have to like strip. And I'm like, it's on you guys now. And that's like the business is changing so much, parts of it sucks, but that aspect I really like, because it's like, how does it feel, guys? But that, when I was like, oh, Scott, I'm sorry, you're being objectified in this scene, and tough for you. And I think I smack him in the ass. And it just felt, there was a level of familiarity and fun and play that I think was accomplished after that scene.
I love that. That's and you're right. It is a really interesting flip that the industry's going through right now with
it is.
What
I mean, I think it'll correct itself, but right now it's like it's everywhere.
It is indeed. So since we're on that topic, though, I would love to ask, you do have an intimate scene with Scott in this film, and I'm curious, did you find that having that fun, jokey rapport with him really helped sort of build that trust to get into those scenes, since that is kind of a very vulnerable thing?
I think every actor is really different. I think with me, for better or worse, like intimacy scenes are more about vanity. And so I think the most helpful thing, and I wish I had done it, but I didn't. I wish I could have seen it while I was on set, because then I would have been like, oh, we can go further, or we can show more, or we can, because really all I care about is whether it looks real and passionate and whether I look hot. So had I seen it, I would have been like, fun, we can go further. The lighting's really good. But I think now we're in this era of like intimacy coordinators, and everything's very like, can you touch your shoulder? Can I touch your chest? Can I? And you're in your head a lot more than it used to be back in the day. So, and it also depends from film to film, what coordinator you're working with, what director you're working with. But I would say an easy rapport with your partner helps, but so does like a shot of tequila or a glass of wine, because everyone just has to like get out of their heads a little bit.
I can imagine it's a really delicate balance, but
it's also for me, what's the most helpful is like the director you love, the DP, and hopefully the DP is the camera operator, because it's like the less people, the better. Even though like the cruise probably doesn't care, just wants to go home and is thinking about like what they're going to eat for dinner. It's still weird to have like a full room and be, naked.
I can only imagine. So I'm glad it seemed to have been a decent experience this time around for you. I see I have time for one last question. So I want to take a second to ask about Fast and Furious. I know Vin's been posting he's busy with Riddick right now. Do you have any timeline on when you might finally get to come back as Mia for the final installment?
I don't have a timeline. I'm usually, I'll probably read it on online, or I'll try to get some information out of Vin. But no, I don't know yet. But hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon, and hopefully we get to see Mia in some big explosive set pieces. If this is going to truly be the end, she deserves to
I
get
agree,
in that
but
action.
Don't kill her.
Oh no!
I'm just
Never kill Mia. Come on, especially not. Her and Brian got a family to raise. We can't do that.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
I'd
Jordana,
like to see them. I'd like to see the teens come back. That'd be cool.
that would be very cool. So we shall see. But in the meantime, Jordana, I can't wait to spread the word about Cellar Door. It is such a great thriller. So thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you so much.
You know what they say about old houses? They all have their deep, dark secrets.